Hey guys, it's Matt here, and in this video, we're going to be messing around with the first ever Retina MacBook Pro and see how usable this thing is nowadays with modern software. So this thing here is a 13-inch 2012 MacBook Pro. Now this thing has 8 gigs of RAM, a 256 gigabyte SSD, so it's not like the bottom barrel spec, but this thing is old, and ultimately we'll just have to see how this thing fares. So yes, my background here is a mess. I apologize for that. There's just stuff here that I have to put away that I haven't put away yet. So I will do that, but not immediately. So here's what we got going on here. I have Yosemite already installed on this MacBook, and that's actually because the MacBook that had Yosemite on it for the iPod project is out of commission for that project right now. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's just slow and Yosemite doesn't run very well on it. So ultimately, I picked something better. This is the new contender, and Yosemite looks flipping good on a Retina display.
And check out that trash can. That is a gorgeous trash can.
So I don't expect to really do a whole lot with that anytime soon, but having a newer MacBook for the project is nice. So don't expect this to be like an update video on that or something. This will be the machine of choice to use for that because Yosemite natively runs on this thing and it's one of the best options. Anyways, I'm rambling. So that's what one of the partitions on here is for. We're gonna be installing macOS Sequoia because I'm gonna be selling the machine I used to use. And this right here is a 15-inch MacBook Pro. This is a 2015 model. I thought I'd use it more than I would, and as much as I love the 2015 models of these, if I'm not using it, I don't need it, and I have a cousin who had a computer that died. This will be a good cheap option for them. So in the meantime, I need a machine that can just run Sequoia. Now, my iMac can run Sequoia, that's fine, but it's nice to have a laptop that can do it. So that's what this is for. So we've got the MacBook Pro here, and I'm gonna start it up into the OpenCore installer and get this thing going. So if we select EFI boot, which will boot into the OpenCore thing, Yosemite shows up here, which is nice to have that option, and then install macOS Sequoia is there as well. Oh gosh, that's tiny. So currently it's running the screen at the native resolution of the screen in non-retina mode, which looks absolutely fantastic. I've already partitioned the discs, and this is insanely tiny, so I will move the camera a little closer, just so you can see what's going on. So we've got the installer here. I can just click continue, which I can barely read from where I'm sitting. To continue installing the software, you must agree to the terms. That's fine. And we're off to the oh, we almost are. It wants me to plug in the charger. And that's that. I will adjust the camera just so then you guys can see the progress of this, and let's speed this along. that's about it. It seems to be running Sonoma now. Or Sonoma, geez, I'm a year behind. Sequoia. So I'm gonna get this thing set up, and since it's very late tonight, I will come back and record a segment tomorrow once I actually get everything set up, just so then it's a bit more realistic in terms of how performance would be once you actually have a few applications and stuff installed. So this is the 2012 Retina MacBook Pro, now with macOS Sequoia, fully installed, fully set up, everything that needed to be done. This a few days after the whole installation, because within that time period I got sick, so that was fun. You can see if I pull up the machine properties here, this is a late 2012 system here, and it's got a 2.5 gigahertz dual core Intel Core i5. This is a 3rd gen processor from what I remember anyways. 8 gigs of RAM, so this is basically, I don't know if I'd say necessarily a base model. This is basically one of the worst Retina MacBook Pros that you can get. How does it perform? So if we open up Safari here, you can see it takes a second to load, but it's actually not terrible. I say that and it doesn't load. Like if I open up YouTube here, it is unfortunately pretty slow. Now running macOS 10 Yosemite, it doesn't really do that, but which is the other OS that I have installed on here. But on this computer, it is not super fast on Sequoia. This thing lost support many years ago, so the fact that this even runs and is actually very responsive, it's honestly pretty good for a machine of this age. Let me see if I pull up my YouTube channel. Keep moving things around, I never remember. Let me pull up one of my videos here. Just gonna skip somewhere in the middle. This is already running at 1080p, and this video doesn't have a whole ton of motion, so this isn't like exactly the best example.
The iTunes and app stores do not function. Actually, I just realized this isn't even connected to Wi-Fi, so I gotta fix that.
So this thing runs perfectly fine with YouTube. This is 1080p video, but 1080p, perfectly fine. This isn't a 4K screen, so there's no reason to play YouTube videos at that high of a resolution. Highest you'd be realistically playing is 1440p, which is what the screen is. There's no stuttering or anything with the video. It is playing back perfectly fine at 60 frames per second. And sometimes it may not look like it because the animations on this phone are not 60 FPS, but it's otherwise running very well. And I am very proud of this old, basically almost 13-year-old MacBook for being able to do all that. Yeah, this thing otherwise is basically perfectly fine. Webcam works, at least to my knowledge it does. Yes, it does. There you go. And yes, you can see how messy this kind of setup is here. I will organize all that later. Don't worry about it. This does work, and honestly, that's pretty flippin' amazing. Considering the fact that this MacBook Pro is 6 years older than the required Mac to run macOS Sequoia, you need a 2018 MacBook Pro to natively run it, and this is a 2012, and it's running it perfectly fine. I'd say it's doing a pretty good job, especially for being as old as it is. It's pretty responsive. YouTube took a hot minute to load, but that's also just because YouTube is a very filled page. Like if I open Google here, yeah, that took like no time at all. So doing just regular web browsing on a machine like this is going to absolutely be no problem at all. This thing is perfectly adequate for that. Moving windows around are smooth. Putting up tiling, stuff like that looks really nice and works really well. So stuff like that, it just seems to work pretty much perfectly, and I've had absolutely no issues running this on here. And like such as me moving applications over, that was instant. It's super nice and super convenient on a Mac like this. So given the cost of these machines, I actually don't know what the price of these are going for on like eBay and such, but I think I ended up paying less than $100 for this computer. Given the price that they are, if you need a good older Mac, these things will do the job just fine. Like let's just open music here real quick while I'm talking. And it is a little slower, like I said. It's not gonna be nearly as fast as even a supported Intel Mac or even like a 2015 or 2014 MacBook Pro. The only places where I've noticed it does slow down a little bit is with Discord, and I'm not gonna display that since there's a lot of different Discord messages and stuff, but it'll stream music just fine. I have it streaming over the network, and this stuff works. I wish I had a song that was not copyright claimable. I only play a few seconds of it though. Yeah, and this is streaming over the internet, and it works perfectly fine. No problems there at all. Stuff like that, it's just, it feels like an actual just Mac experience. Now the only things that I will say are not great with this computer, handoff and all the modern AirDrop stuff like that. This is a 2012 model, and 2012 models don't have the unlock with Apple Watch thing. So if I do a lock screen command here to take me back to the lock screen here, and I have to get it to sleep first or else it won't do it. It will say unlocking with Apple Watch, but it will never actually do it. Older macOS doesn't even give you the option to do this because it was never supported on these models, but newer macOS will confuse the card in there to think it is supported. It isn't, it's not going to work. I don't exactly know what's missing from the 2012s that make that not work, but it just doesn't on these. But every other feature works, like handoff, all the other stuff. I just don't know why unlock with Apple Watch doesn't. I forgot to even mention as well, universal control works on this machine as well, at least to my knowledge it does. So if I move my cursor off to the side here, it's actually now controlling my iMac right to the left of this computer. And if I use my mouse from my iMac, you can hear that over here, I can now control this computer over here using my iMac's mouse. You can see it even scrolls like how it normally would on a mouse instead of the touchpad's inertial scrolling. So universal control works perfectly fine on this machine. I have absolutely no issues with it. Yeah, you can see I'm able to use stuff like that just fine. I'm actually amazed that the battery health on this computer is that high. This thing works perfectly fine. I have absolutely no issues with the 2012 machines. It's actually just a perfectly fine usable computer. Now, if you use this for anything graphically intensive, it's gonna fall apart. And the reason for that is simply because the graphics in this thing are just really bad. You can see if I go over to graphics and displays, there's only one graphics type, and it is the Intel HD Graphics 4000. This is the single-handedly worst graphics card, and it's not even really a graphics card, but this is single-handedly the worst computer graphics chip or anything that has metal support. Literally, it is the worst one. So the fact that this is running on a 2560 by 1600 Retina display means that it's not going to run stuff very well. If you had a dedicated graphics model like that was on a 15-inch or whatever, that'd be a lot better than this. But this machine, for basic tasks and stuff, it can handle it pretty okay. Would I suggest that you get a machine like this for yourself? Probably not, given how old they are at this point. macOS Sequoia likely will be the last version of macOS for Intel machines. If not, then pretty much guaranteed that the next version after that will be. So we're at that point now where these machines are basically at the end of their lives. Even though they run stuff really well, once they lose support from macOS, or once Intel Mac support is gone, that will kill off the unsupported project for all of the machines spanning from 2007 to 2020. So that's just unfortunately the reality that we're in, but that's just how probably things are going to be. But yeah, for the money that these machines are, I would say if you plan to use them after they're done being usable Macs, it's like a Windows machine. These machines are pretty good for that. They're pretty old though, but they're pretty decent. Windows' scaling, especially Windows 11's, is actually pretty decent, so using a Retina display is not going to be a huge problem. And Linux, all the display scaling stuff is just handled on your desktop manager, so that would just be up to your discretion. But yeah, other than that, these things are pretty decent machines, and I would say don't buy one nowadays, but if you do have one and it is your only machine, they're not the worst thing in the world to have to use. But just don't expect them to be able to do like heavy video editing tasks or stuff like that, although I'm sure light video editing would be perfectly fine on these. So yeah, that's about it for this video. If you liked it, then give it a like and hit subscribe if you like the content that you see on this channel. Sorry for my voice sounding a little weird right now. I am sick, but that should be resolved by the time I record the next video. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and take care.